This is going okay. You think so?
Yeah.
You ever listen to one of the unedited unbeings?
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of this right here.
Yeah. Let's just.
Did you? If you like turn it up,
Can
to
you
like
hear?
5? Does that?
Can you hear? Oh, okay. So you can. Yep.
Click it one more time. Did it do it then?
If it goes into the red, just tell me.
Okay. What does that mean when it goes into the red?
It's peaking.
Is that audio?
Yeah, that's the indicator light. I don't know, for the audio input. So if it goes into the red, then it is sensing that it's peaking.
Okay.
It'll sound peaked.
Okay.
Welcome to the Benedictine Thought and Action podcast. We are beginners in the Benedictine way, so we have to listen to the voice of wisdom. Otherwise, we're sunk. Join John and Jason as they learn to become more aware of God through living hospitably in community. On today's pod, John and Jason talk about the phrase thought and action. Where does it come from? What does it tell us about being Benedictine? And what does any of that have to do with John Denver?
So we're here to talk about the phrase thought and action, where it comes from, what it means to you and me, what it might mean to the audience. And the first thing to say about it is that some years ago, our beloved President Mark Long started using the phrase Benedictine thought and action in the context of Mount Marty's vision for the future. I think he would say things like, I want Mount Marty to become a leader in Benedictine thought and action. And then after a while, he came to us and with the phrase kind of.
Yeah,
I
would say
just like the seed of an idea.
I'd say before that, though, we picked up on that phrase and said, okay, let's be realistic here. We aren't right now a global leader in Benedictine thought and action. I love an unreachable, impossible goal. I love a goal that's very far away. I love the little weird.
Well, it just gives you a lot of time.
Yeah.
You know?
I love it when people look at me and their eyes say, you're weird. And that's,
you're never going to get there. And then we strive.
So then he comes to you.
So we're given this little invitation to maybe think about doing stuff that increases Mount Marty's ability to be a leader in Benedictine thought and action. And so last episode, we kind of introduced ourselves and the podcast at the most general level. And here we are dealing with the thought and action. And who
are we and what are we doing here?
Yeah. You had the brilliant idea to say we should mine the history, the genealogy of this phrase, because people don't Mark's a brilliant guy, but Mark didn't just come up with the phrase thought and action. It's a thing that's out there in culture. It's out there in academia, in intellectual world. And so we were thinking, let's talk about that.
Yeah. I think I ran into that phrase a lot in spiritual formation circles and at seminary.
Oh.
Well, we can't just sit here praying.
Gotcha.
We've got to be people of thought and action.
I see.
Or of prayer and action.
When I was in seminary, by the way, neither of us were studying for the priesthood. We were both Protestants. I remember going to systematic theology class. And then on the break, it'd be a 3-hour evening class or whatever. And on the break, you'd have some middle-aged person, second career kind of person going to seminary. And they've already been involved in ministry. And then they would be on the break and they say, I just don't even see why I need to study any of this systematic theology. I'm in here for pastoral practice. That's what we really
I need more icebreakers.
Yeah.
So I can be a youth pastor.
Right. They're why would we need to know about Hegel's influence on, whatever? And
what do you mean? And the Son matters in the creed.
Right. So I think
I'm all about loving on people.
That was a backwards introduction to the idea that thought and action matter at seminary. And they definitely would not all of my classmates, but several of them, they just wanted the action. The action. Action Jackson.
Well, and by total happenstance, because we did not know each other and had no way of crossing paths before this. We were both at evangelical Wesleyan places where there was a real pietist strain,
right?
Where what really matters is your affect. What really matters is how you feel about it. You can't just go through the motions. So I think to a lot of them, having the right idea about whether the creed should have "and the Son" in it, which is, by the way, just to explain, one of the big differences between the Eastern and Western churches is that the Eastern Orthodox Church chose to put "and the Son" into the third article of the creed.
Other way around. The Western Church chose.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Sorry.
Eastern Church did not.
We're all just learning. Yeah, no, they were upset about it because of the way that they understood the processions of the Trinity. Filioque. And so when you and I were learning about that and thinking, this is so interesting, and then reading a guy named Zazoulis saying like, well, maybe it's all the same really, and we can all be at the same church again. They were thinking, this is all up here, man, but I'm just like loving on people and feeling my love for God,
right?
Which is like a caricature. I'm not saying that those people are bad, but we were both just like, that was unintelligible to us, I think, because for us, that thought work was an act of devotion.
Right. So I hadn't thought about this till right now, but growing up in pietist tradition, I think I was raised with a lack of thought and action.
Yeah.
An abundance of, we're triangulating here, thought, action, and feeling. And
oh, that's true.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
wait, should this be the thought and feeling and action podcast?
But I mean, think about it. Part of the reason you and I both went on to like further theological studies because we felt in our upbringing, there was just a lack of intellectual work. Not that the people that were raising us were stupid.
No.
They just didn't bother.
It wasn't
to study the faith.
A priority.
It was not a priority.
Like I came away from my Southern Baptist era thinking Southern Baptists must not know anything about their history and that they just popped up. Now, that's not true.
Right.
Lots of Southern Baptists know all about their history. It was just not a priority for them. So they never brought it up.
Right.
And our whole time, it was that Jesus, disciples, and then just a big gap of people who didn't feel and know God the way we do. And then now we're here. So thank God.
Right.
2,000 years later.
And so I grew up very similarly. And then on the action side, I did not grow up in like a social justice kind of committed denomination.
No, in fact, we were encouraged only to do anything that involved talking to people for long enough to get them to the sinner's prayer in the Southern Baptist tradition, which is, by the way, not a pietist tradition. I became Methodist later. But
in our unique ways, we were lacking both thought and action, and the emphasis was on right feeling.
Right
feeling, which by the time I got to college was very distasteful to me, and began that was like that opened the door to where feelings are great,
yeah,
and practice or action is essential, and thought is super rad.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of problems as Catholics, but promoting and loving thought, feeling, and action is not one of them.
No. Well, at least not theoretically.
Not theoretically. Yeah. Well, there are 2 billion Christians and 1 billion of them are Catholic. It's a whole bunch of them.
Well, I just know that if any of our Southern Baptist or Methodist friends are listening, they're going to be like, ever been to Mass? Everyone with their glazed over eyes.
Right. You know, our feelings, it's elsewhere. It's not in the weekly liturgy necessarily.
Yeah, I don't know. This is probably too extreme to say, but my opinion is like I have a duty to God that is independent of how I'm feeling about it on the day.
That's not extreme. That's reasonable.
Yeah. So
thank God it does not depend on my feelings.
It would be great if my eyes weren't glazed over in Mass, but the important part is the Mass.
Right. So I guess we could, for all three, thank God it doesn't depend on my feelings. Thank God it doesn't depend on my intelligence.
Yeah. And if I had to have all the right ideas,
right,
ooh,
we'd be screwed. And thank God it doesn't depend on my right action, because I screw up all the time. I forget to do things. I commit and omit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that reminds me too. I guess now I'm really thinking about my past. Like this is maybe not totally relatable to anybody who wasn't evangelical growing up, but there was this conservative liberal war, and all the conservatives wanted to go on mission trips where you might fix someone's house, but the real reason we're there is to save souls. And the liberals, mainliners, felt really uncomfortable with the saving of the souls portion. And so we were there to fix their houses, and like God was there in the fixing of the houses.
Mm-hmm.
And they couldn't, those two forms of action couldn't come together at all. There was no crossover.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I think that this defines so much of our way of being Christians in the world. That split and the desire to figure out a way to overcome it. So in the previous episode, I think we emphasized that part of the point of this podcast is that we would have people on and we would talk about things, you and me, that help us understand more deeply what it means to be a Benedictine. But clearly already we're going to get other forms of therapy in this adventure. Yeah.
Yeah. Gotta tell you,
not sorry, I guess.
None of that was on the outline. I just really needed to get it out, I guess.
Yeah. We just needed to talk about it.
So we started to think about thought and action a little bit. And then I did what I've been doing a lot lately, which is I decided to start a little conversation with old chat GPT.
Chatwick.
I'm curious, as a text generator, it is interesting to me to ask questions to ChatGPT because I am aware that it is giving me the best answer on average from all the text on the internet.
Right.
Just yesterday, it was aiding me in translating Renaissance Spanish, and it did a pretty good job because it can go out and see how other people are translating Renaissance Spanish in a way that I don't have access to.
Right.
But then I asked it, what about the origin of the phrase thought and action? Well, it was a personal conversation between Chat and I. So I wonder, now that you've read over our interactions, what are some highlights for you? Because I also used Cite, which is like a research AI. It like basically you put in a research question and it'll write a little essay for you and then give you a suggested list of references. So
right, and the references in this case are real. For those of you listening,
can hallucinate.
Yeah, this other form of chat, this other AI service tool, whatever, is actually for academic work. So we weren't just like, not that there's anything wrong with poking around in the old Chat GPT 4 or whatever, but you weren't actually using that.
Yeah, as long as you're critical about what you're getting out of it,
you got to know what you're.
It's just a tool. So what did you think?
I read through the thing, and I thought, first of all, the interesting thing was like Chat really did not want to tell you where the thought or the phrase thought and action.
It did everything it could to avoid.
If it could have sworn at you, I think it would have.
I said no. You tell me, and it said,
gosh darn it, I don't know.
I refer you to my statement.
As I already said. I feel like I said. I don't know where it came from.
And all that being said, we did have a wide-ranging list of potential answers.
Right. So one highlight for me was that on the whole internet, in academic sources, Chat GPT could not find, like, here's the first time it was used. However, it did give us some genealogical work for us and gave us some proximate, like early.
Some things that we would have thought of.
Early. Yeah.
Like Bible.
I mean, I'm as smart as AI.
Yeah. Its Bible answer was basically to point out that the Bible says faith and works.
Right.
Which is
James's letter. Yeah.
It was adjacent. I don't know that I would have necessarily immediately said like, well, it's obviously Marx.
Yeah.
Writing against Feuerbach.
Right. Well, but when we were talking about this earlier, I did think, isn't this thought and action like a big part of liberation theology? And of course, Marx is like huge for liberation theology. So yeah, ChatGPT's response, a couple of the highlights for the phrases like influence in our world of like studying theology.
Yeah.
Marx and Gutierrez, probably the most famous liberation theologian.
Yeah.
I would say.
Rightly or wrongly.
Gustavo Gutierrez.
He's the one that you read in liberation theology class.
Right. Yeah. Marx has this criticism of the history of philosophy that actually parallels my classmates' and criticism of systematic theology in seminary. And he was just like, they're just describing the world. That's all philosophers are ever doing. They're just describing the world. They're not changing the world. And the point is to change the world. We've got to change the world. So
can we just stop really quick though, for anybody who is listening, all five.
Yeah.
They may have heard Marx is bad.
Sure.
Is Marx in fact bad?
You would put me on that spot. Is Marx bad? I don't mind talking about Marx or using Marx or thinking about Marx. I mean, he's an interesting conversation partner.
Let's take the ideas one at a time rather than pre-deciding that everything Marx ever did was
right.
Certainly horrors have come from people who read him.
Let's be clear. Neither John nor I are Stalinists.
No.
Leninists.
Never have been.
Or Maoists.
I'm not even a Trotskyist.
So we just happen to know that Marx has had an enormous influence on global thought.
Yeah.
And for some nefarious and unfortunate reasons, but also for some very good reasons. He had an incisive, penetrating take on reality.
He's also a boogeyman in our society right now for some people.
Right. So, yeah.
If you hear Marx, it's like, uh-oh, cancel him.
Yep. So we're not talking about Marx for any of those reasons. We're just saying the history of this phrase, thought and action. One of the possible birthplaces is in Marx's interesting thought that philosophy should do more than just describe the world, just give us ideas about the world. It should change the world. And so I don't think my classmate at seminary was consciously being a Marxist, but she was saying the systematic theology course, we can't just describe God. We got to change people's lives.
Yeah.
We can't just be locked in our thoughts and in our brains and all that. We have to do stuff. And so Gutierrez takes the similar approach to theology. Theology just shouldn't just be thinking and talking about God. It should be transformative action. So I don't think my classmate thought of herself as a liberation theologian either, but that critique from Marx, the critique of philosophy as just description, just ideas, just trickled its way into a lot of areas. Not only the study of systematic theology, and then you end up with someone like Gutierrez, but into someone's response to a systematic theology class who knows nothing about liberation theology, doesn't care, never studied Marx, and yet is thinking, well, if we're not going to change things, why are we even talking?
Yeah.
We're not going to do stuff. Why are we even talking?
Mm-hmm.
And, the longer we talk about this, the more I understand why we needed to call the podcast this, because Benedictines famously are workers, ora et labora, prayer and work.
And simultaneously, I think a lot of people would say, in our modern world, we can't just hide in a monastery and pray.
Right.
And so it kind of addresses the idea that it's, kind of like a solipsistic tradition where it's really all about hiding in a monastery and working on your work and praying only, because that's obviously not the history of the Benedictine tradition that we know. But it also, I think it sets us on a good path to talk about what people have thought about the Benedictine tradition, but also who we want to be as Benedictines based on the tradition that we know. Active traditioning.
Yeah, I suppose there's a chance that people listening wouldn't know about the monastic life more generally, but in Europe for centuries and centuries and centuries, there have been cycles of criticism of monastics, that it's just a way of checking out of life, and
certainly there were times in monasteries and places.
The critique doesn't come from nowhere.
No.
Especially in the early modern period, there was an increasing critique. You can't just go live there and just not contribute to society. What are you guys doing over there? You're hoarding wealth and
hoarding knowledge.
Right. And we don't like that. So, famously, when the French Revolution hits, they just shut down all the monasteries and confiscate all the property and give it to the state. You're done.
Shut it down.
So one of my teachers told me that once they allowed the monasteries to reopen, I think under Napoleon maybe, they could only reopen if they produced a product that was for sale. Like, so they wouldn't open as a monastery. They would open as like a pottery, whatever, maker,
which
or something. I don't know
to
if
be
that's
fair was Benedict's whole idea.
Sure. But yeah, just so people know,
probably wouldn't have loved that they were living off interest on their dragon hoard.
Yeah.
Probably wouldn't have loved that. Sorry. I think of piles of gold and then it's just dragons.
Yeah, that's what dragons take naps on.
Smaug.
Yeah. Piles of gold. So, thought and action. We don't know where the phrase comes from. It has an interesting relationship to liberal and to conservative Christianity, both in its Protestant and its Catholic forms. And it has had an enormous impact both in Marxist thought and in Marx's relationship to, or his influence on 20th and 21st century theology. Now, I have to tell you what that looked like to me. John's scrolling through some of the Chat GPT like content, and he's highlighted something that I think he wants to talk about. But that
was behind the scenes. That was for Kevin only.
Kevin can take this out if he doesn't like it. But I just want to let you know that from over here, it's far enough away that I thought he was highlighting the name John Denver. So I was really excited. I didn't know.
Taking it on country roads.
I have overlooked this part of Chat GPT's intervention that John Denver's
actually really about thinking about country roads take me home, but also doing it.
Yeah, like walking on those roads and thinking about those roads and feeling about them. He's got a real country road piety. No, it says John Dewey, not John Denver.
You know about old John Dewey? American public education. Yeah.
Tradition, right? Yeah, say more about John Dewey.
Well, I actually don't know as much about this as I would have liked, because, of course, having a master's in education, what happens is often in the history of education parts, they're like, well, and John Dewey, and then it's these two ideas. So you don't ever, and you're supposed to have
deep
read
dives.
No, but basically, Chat GPT's response was that, like, part of the American public education tradition is not just to have gained a lot of trivia, but to be able to apply it pragmatically.
Change
and that's part of the educational process. I'd love to know more about if that wasn't the case before in American education, if maybe it was like, we just need them to know all the trivia and then they can get to work harvesting or whatever, or not harvesting because farmers didn't have education or whatever.
Yeah, that would be the interesting intersection there. He's coming along with this insistence that education needs to do something as more and more people are being put through the education system. This is not a question if like most of the trivia or most of the knowledge is reserved for people who had private tutors.
Yeah.
Because their parents could afford it. And
yeah,
everyone
perhaps
else
he's responding to like, well, we all know that the plantation owner and the factory owner's sons will be studying Cicero.
Right.
But we've got to teach these farmers' kids some things that they can actually apply.
Yeah, I think so. That makes, I don't know. So, right. I don't know Dewey well enough.
Yeah. Right in guys. If you know more about the history of American education.
We'll do a whole episode on Dewey.
Yeah, in our first mailbag episode.
Dewey and Benedict. Dewey, Benedict?
Well, I think we may be overselling the ChatGPT conversation that I had. I was mostly just being entertained watching it run circles around itself, not answering the question.
Yeah, no, I think it was a good springboard. I mean, it gave us some help, but it also freed us up to say, wherever this phrase comes from, whoever thought of it first, and whatever its impact on life so far, we're free and open to doing whatever we want with it. And I think it helps us understand why you and I are, given, going back to where we started, the way we grew up, it might not come as any surprise to a third party observing us that we're attracted to the Benedictine way.
Yeah.
That makes total sense because you have a way of accounting for thought, action, and feeling. Benedict can help you with all of that. So,
well, I remember even hearing those critiques that I talked about earlier, and also hearing young John, hearing faith leaders say, you've got to totally give up everything for Christ. Mm. And thinking to myself, I'm not saying it out loud, my pastor, who's supposedly given up everything, has the nicest house of anybody in the whole church. But these guys gave up all their possessions and their, future potential family. And it kind of seems to me like they're the ones giving up everything and not any of us.
Yeah.
And that was like part of my journey toward Catholicism. I do just want to say really quick, we did use Sight as well. And it gave us a lovely little essay on Gutierrez, which was mostly, I think, review for us. I think we'll have plenty of opportunities in the future to talk about overlaps between the Benedictine tradition and liberation theology.
Yeah.
And, obviously talking about the church's various positions on liberation theology. But there was like a little fun hiccup in the Sight essay where it basically said, one place that thought and action is used a lot is in the treatment of obsessive compulsive disorder. So I'm just going to read. The phrase thought and action is often associated with philosophical and psychological discourse surrounding the relationship between cognitive processes and behavioral outcomes. For instance, the concept of thought-action fusion has been extensively studied in the context of obsessive compulsive disorder, where it refers to the cognitive distortion that equates thoughts with actions, leading to significant anxiety and behavioral responses. So what's your Benedictine response to that?
Thank you.
So in other words,
I don't even know.
Sometimes one of the issues for my understanding of what I've just read is, for some people that have OCD, thinking obsessively a thing equates to having done it for them, causing anxiety. Yeah. Which I think is the opposite of what we're here to do.
Yeah. I've heard these stories, right?
Yeah.
Someone thinking again and again and again that they accidentally ran over someone with their car, and like driving past that place again and again and again and again because they just, no, I did that. And yeah.
Well, there's an institutional version of this as well.
Say more.
Talking about whatever the broad concept is over and over and over sometimes makes us feel like we've done it. If we constantly talk about our strategic plan,
sure,
to develop leadership, this, that, and the other thing,
right?
If we say that enough times, sometimes
didn't we do it?
We really have thought action fused those things and thought, wow, we really did it.
That's
despite all appearances.
This is a disturbing insight you've just had.
Do institutions have OCD?
Yeah.
Is that what I'm thinking?
That's a whole dissertation, I would say.
Oh.
A whole book. I have a book called How Institutions Think. I think it's by Mary Douglas. It's a great book. Amazing book. But I don't think she mentions OCD. There's an aperture there.
Book deal, baby. Except for I'd have to get like...
But you're totally right.
Yeah.
And by the way, this is not some like secret. John and I are not winking at each other because we're thinking about Mount Marty. We're just thinking about all the institutions we've ever been a part of. We just talk about something enough.
Common.
That means we're doing it.
I'm talking the community theater I used to work with.
Yeah.
I'm talking, businesses that I've worked for.
Right.
We're a family here.
Yeah. Say it enough.
We're a family here. That we actually believe that we're a family, even though we don't say or do any of the things that belong to family.
Think how disappointed John Denver is in us when we act that way.
I think about it all the time.
Yeah. Rest in peace. No. I know. I just don't have a lot of patience for people who just dump all over him because he wasn't, Bob Dylan. And my feelings on Bob Dylan. I love Bob Dylan. I think he's a transcendent talent.
Wow.
But let John Denver be John Denver.
That's one of those times though when you just say, I need better friends. It's not complicated.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess last episode we banned some words. If we ever have anyone on here that's got a single bad thing to say about John Denver.
Any words contra Denverium.
Yeah. The interview's over. Done. No,
trapdoor.
No, thank you.
Trapdoor.
Yeah. Trapdoor.
They get trapdoored.
Yeah.
Right then.
No, thank you.
So if the podcast ever just cuts out, it's not a technical issue.
Not at all. We don't have technical issues.
Someone's been.
Yeah, we have moral issues with people who don't like John Denver.
Well, Let's close the podcast the way we always have before.
Okay.
with talking about a piece of media or content or whatever that we've experienced in this last week. We might re-record this depending on how dated it seems when this actually comes out. Who knows when this is coming?
Piece of media that I've consumed in the last week. I've been listening to a ton of music. Do we talk about music? Is that okay? I know it's media.
It mediates something to us, doesn't it? Does it not?
I've been listening to a band called Grails, like Holy Grail. Grails. It's an instrumental band, and it's at turns creepy, beautiful, pastoral, dark, industrial. I mean, it's got all these moods. So I've really been enjoying poking around in their catalog. Grails. I'm not recommending any certain album. They have quite a few albums, and I am pro Grails.
You're pro Grails.
Yeah.
Well, if the computer wasn't behind me, I'd be adding it to my iTunes right now. Mine, I think, if I'm being really honest, I don't think anyone listening to this doesn't know that I'm a hyper nerd on some very odd things. But the media, as I mentioned earlier, I have been digging into tailor's guides on basically religious and everyday clothing from about the year 800 to about the year 1500.
Oh, not like Taylor.
No.
When you said
not Taylor Swift, no.
So
there will come a day.
Start again, because as soon as you said Taylor's guide, what did she tell us what is she guiding us
What
on?
she said was, John, if you make a friar costume for Halloween, then you can also wear it to medieval fair and Renaissance fair.
Gosh.
And then you will have only spent $100 on the costume for the rest of your life for all of the occasions. You'll never have to go to a fair again.
Her reach in culture is just unfathomable.
Well,
so
that's the kind of relationship she and I have. So anyway,
start again. A tailor, like a person who works with cloth and thread and stuff.
So I actually found what I think is either a historical reenactor or an actual friar. I can't really tell from the blog, who is digging into early 16th century Franciscan habits, because he's doing historical interpretation of early Franciscan Europeans to arrive in Florida. Well, he sent me over to the National Library of Spain to look at digitized books from the 1580s, 90s, 16 teens with cutting guides for Franciscan habits from then. And then as I'm trying to figure out pre-metric, I know that this sounds insane.
I love it. Keep going.
Pre-metric forms of measurement, because there's all just these random letters on there, and they all it's like Roman numerals, but for whatever the Spanish equivalent of yards and feet and inches, and 2 fingers off if you do a yard and a foot and 2 fingers off of it, it's, so I've been doing all that. But the media that I actually want to talk about is I just interlibrary loaned Woven into the Earth again, which is just the most remarkable book of scholarship. Like, I wish everybody could make what they're doing this available to people. It's just a book about this find. Basically, in the early 1900s, Greenland icebergs glaciers started to melt, and what was uncovered were complete, untouched, like a whole village's worth of clothes from the 14th century.
That is awesome.
That are basically intact. And then going through and looking, and they're able to categorize. We found 48 hoods, and they fit into these 3 hood types. Type 1 with the lyra pipe and the, whatever. And so it's just invaluable, because in a lot of historical periods, when you're trying to make that stuff, you've basically just got manuscript illuminations and a lot of guesswork to do.
Yeah.
Like, you're required to lean pretty hard on the monk who's drawing the courtiers to have drawn the seam lines on, so you know how the thing was cut. But man, if it weren't $150, this book, I'd just buy it. But man, it's been really, really cool because I'm trying to, as I said previously, I'm trying to make that Franciscan habit, but I'm also like a little torn, thinking maybe I should just be a medieval courtier or something.
Woven into the earth.
It's wonderful. So that's my media. That was an extremely long answer.
But that's a heck of a...
Kevin's going to cut it.
That's a heck of a combo, though. Someone out there could get that book and listen to Grails and flip through and look at the pictures.
Honestly, it's like we planned it.
I know.
Even though we definitely didn't.
I know.
All right. Peace and love. Thought and actioners.
We'll work on it.
What are we workshopping it? What do we call these people?
I like thought and actioners.
Partners and closest friends.
Thinkers and actors.
Thinkers and actors. We're all but thinkers and actors.
So I want to add something.
Okay. If you guys have any suggestions, send them in to the email that we haven't established yet.
Well, we could actually probably just talk directly to the faces of the people who would actually listen to this. All 5 of them.
Yeah, they're like just right outside the room, probably.
What should we call you guys?
You have any thoughts?
Yeah.
All right. Have a good week. Bye.
Bye.
The Benedictine Thought and Action podcast is produced by John Badley and Jason Heron, but really just Braylon Saucy. We're edited by John's golden doodle Llewellyn Lewin Badley. We're fact-checked by Jason's cat, Gigi, who suffers with cerebellar hypoplasia. This show was engineered by Frank Lloyd Wright. Original music by The Grateful Dead, but we lost that version, so we just used GarageBand to make the beats you are listening to even now. Our patron saints are Benedict Augustine, Gertrude of Helfta, Elred of Rievaulx, Bernard of Clairvaux, William of Bourges, Robert Alberich, Stephen of Aubezine, Virgin Lutgard, and Blessed Gerard. The voice you are listening to now is an AI homunculus, created by John and Jason from the voice of Richard Loftus.